What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So they just revealed the brand new batch, of course, with Oden, Kinemon, Denjiro, as well as Carrot, Dog, and Cat. So those are the new batch. That's the end of the month, so we're at December 2024. This is the final tier list video of 2024 before we head into the New Year celebration. Not too sure when I'll get around to making the New Year's celebration tier list video, but just know that this is the final one in terms of the calendar year, right? So this is kind of interesting. This is going to be where we finish up for the year 2024 before we head into that next big year, of course. Now, of course, you know, with this tier list, we're going to go through the current listing, see if anything is going to change. But in terms of the new characters that were added between last month and this month, in terms of legends, we've got Kaido and Alba, we've got Katakuri, Big Mom, 6 plus Crocodile, of course, as well as the new ones, as we said, Kinemon, Denjiro, Oden, Carrot, Dog, and Cat. So let's get into it. Let's have a look and see if anything needs to change. So in terms of the niche usages, I mean, let's be real, probably not too much is changing here. I think a lot of these characters, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the characters on this list are, I would say, niche usages. Shout out to my man V1 Brook though. He was used so much in the last couple of super bosses, and then they basically have made the most recent super boss where Brook, it was like not a viable strategy anymore because it just didn't work as intended. So if they continue down that route where they are purposefully trying to push Brook out of being used in super bosses, yeah, that's going to make him less valuable overall. So we'll have to wait and see, of course. Now, in terms of, I was getting ahead of myself looking at Brook, but let's have a look at the rarely used tier. Unfortunately, we don't have our hands on Halloween Perona 6 Plus yet, you know, because, you know, she came out and you could only get her from pulling on the Sugo Fest that debuted with Halloween Uta. So when are we getting this? We don't know. I assume when December rolls around, they're just going to give them out for free. That would be my assumption. It would be very weird if they just didn't, like, never give out the skulls until like 2 months later where they put it in the Kizuna exchange. I would hate for them to do that, but hey, Bandai have done crazier things, right? Magellan? Dude, Magellan, high key. I want to bump him up. He's been used so much in the most recent month, but of course, you know, when they typically do that with a free-to-play 6 plus, they make the character usually pretty good for the next couple of months or so, and then kind of phases out. But I think Magellan's a really good legend overall, so I do want to bump him up a little bit. Let's see about the rest of them, man. Shout out to Kuzan, man. He's so trash. He's so bad. To be honest, I kind of want to put him, like, down here. He's just not good. I just never see this guy ever being used. I mean, to be honest, a lot of these characters you could say that about. But the thing is, a lot of these, like, TM legends, like I see Hina here. I see, like, Lilith has a bit of uses for sure. Kobe has some niche usages. Like, it really depends because a lot of these units are not going to see that much play. I mean, I really love this Kaido, but again, let's be real, you're probably not using him over a lot of other Kaido-focused characters in Treasure Cruise, right? You know, like the Anniversary Shanks is okay, but not really going to see that much play. Fire Tank Pirate still has some pretty cool uses for sure. I think he's still pretty okay. Luffy and the Straw Hats is continuously getting worse and worse. I mean, still to this day, they have probably one of the best final taps, if not the best final tap in the game. Just the problem is there's so many good Straw Hats that this character is so difficult to use. That is just straight up the main issue. And a lot of the times, you don't have the space to put him in the crew, and even if you did have space to put them in the crew, it actually makes your damage less, rather than just putting another character that actually complements your team. A lot of the times when Luffy and the Straw Hats would first come out, you could just build whatever 5 units you want, and then have Straw Hats on the crew, and your damage just goes crazy high. But like today's day and age with EX super requirements, super tandem requirements, rush requirements, having to have certain puzzle pieces on your crew to make the whole team work, it just is better to do that rather than inject a random unit on your team that does do a lot of damage for your team, but it doesn't really provide the best overall synergy. So it's unfortunate with the way that it is, but it makes sense. It makes sense, you know. We'll see. They do need to make more final taps of this akin to something like this, you know. Shout out to Brook, though. Brook's got a very similar final tap too. Luffy and the Straw Hats, but for free spirits. Still a really big fan of the super type Kaido here. I think he's honestly still pretty good. Let's move on to the moderately used tier. So this is going to be a little bit higher in terms of the value that I place on these units. I actually use Law and Beppo and Kid Killer for that matter. These units I actually use a lot. These units are really good, surprisingly. This unit, man, Roger and Oden, this is one of the New Year's Legends from last year. It was basically like the headliner unit, but it's kind of weird how it's kind of gone, because this unit was focused on like building like a mono quick slasher striker team or whatever it was, and it just really wasn't that good. Building teams focused around one color, it's usually not the way to go in Treasure Cruise, unless if you have an ability that can transform types or be super effective against types. Kind of like what this Shanks was trying to do, but this guy still kind of falls off the mark a little bit, you know. I really think he kind of deserves a super evolution. Would love to see that. But I digress. Let's keep trugging along here. Got the Sulongs, they're still pretty good. Roger and Newgate, definitely don't see as much play as when they first came out, obviously, but they're still kind of nice to have. Magma Kaido, honestly, gonna bump him up a little bit. He, with the most recent stuff that's come out, you know, a lot of powerhouse support. Rush Kaido has been a lot more valuable overall, you know, versus Blackbeard with this guy is just a phenomenal combo. And especially when we have some of the other characters we'll talk about shortly, they can synergize pretty well with him. As for the rest of the units, Shiryu, he also being, you know, powerhouse focused. This guy is a beast, by the way. Do not sleep on Shiryu. I think he's the best Kizuna legend in the game, or one of the... Well, you got Toki there, of course, but... Wait, actually, where is Toki now that I'm thinking about it? Where is Toki on this list? She has to be here somewhere, right? I've got Toki all the way down in niche. I completely looked over that. To be honest, Toki deserves to be, like, in... moderately used, to be honest. Like, Toki's insane. Like, even in a lot of content, like, where you don't need to use Toki, you can just use Toki anyway, because, you know, 3.5 times attack and all boost is more than enough to get through most content that isn't a super boss. And even in a super boss, yeah, if 2 units that have type advantage have the 3.5 times attack and all boost, more often than not, as long as they're the big damage dealers, like with a super tandem, rush, final tap, whatever, yeah, usually it's more than enough for those types of units. But, I mean, as I said, don't sleep on Shiryu. This unit is very, very good. As for the rest of the units here, I think you've got a pretty good mix of good captain effects, good special abilities, you know, just a good combo overall. Like, I can definitely see a lot of units here that have great specials, some have great captains, some are both. You know, I think this is a good mix here. Moving on to the top end of the tier list, do I want to make any changes here? Let's have a look. Honestly, Rush Sanji, I do want to bump him down. Unfortunately, as it is, and same with Enma Zoro, this character is falling out of favor a little bit. While I do admit these characters are still very good, I'm not saying that these characters are bad, it's just that when you look at the tier, always used, I really haven't used these 2 characters in content for like 3 months, right? Like, this is from a personal level. There's just so many other units I would rather use over these units. Saying that though, I do love using Enma Zoro. He is very difficult to use, but if you use him correctly, it's pretty monstrous what he can do. We've also got Alba. I do want to keep Alba up here, to be honest. I think Alba's just phenomenal. Just a great utility, good damage, good synergy with the Kaido units, of course. He's still pretty solid. Yamato and Kaido, I still really love this unit too. I've used both Yamato and Kaido in the last month or so, just like we're doing showcases and stuff. Like, these units are still really, really strong. I really like Rayleigh and Gaban. I think that for a normal, like, monthly legend, a character you can get on basically any red ticket moving forward, this character is amazing. Like, legit one of the best base legends that has ever released. Just phenomenal utility, gives you some damage as well. Rainbow Captain, there's really not much to complain about here. Cross Guilds, this is like a personal thing for me, personal bias for Cross Guild. One of my favorite legends that's released in Treasure Cruise history. I love the design aspect of this unit. While yes, at times it can be difficult to use him because of the fact that you use the special ability and then you have to find ways to give him cooldown once again, but the set target status is god tier. It's so freaking good. And then you can use the secondary special for like debuff removal on the enemy, or boost, fixed damage, and then you can also do the other effect to remove like despair and chain boundary and stuff. He can just do a lot of cool stuff. Even if you just take the first 2 specials, set target status, or boost, removing 2 defensive effects, fixed damage, like just that alone is amazing. A lot of the times you're never going to get to that 3rd special, at least you're not aiming to hit that 3rd special. Even just the first 2, phenomenal. Good in Super Boss, basically good in every piece of content ever. So just phenomenal. Really love Cross Guild. This is kind of similar to Rayleigh Gaban. Just a really nice character. It's very accessible on a lot of legend tickets. EXP captain, great unit, good utility, good damage, just solid overall. Versus Law is kind of trash, but versus Blackbeard is so good. I literally want to bump him up. Like, I legit, I think versus Blackbeard might be pushing for top 5. Just the last couple of months, the amount of times I have used this guy man, he's so good. He is so good. Versus Blackbeard, I'm not going to say like it was a mistake to design. Like, I think a character like Zoro Sanji, that character was a mistake in terms of how powerful that unit was. And the fact that they release a character like this and then they give us Cross Skill, which has good synergy. You know, you even got Shiryu, wherever he is. Shiryu, good synergy with him as well, the set target status stuff. But the amount of powerful free spirit and slasher characters we've been getting has made Zoro and Sanji way more powerful than when they were when they first came out. But versus Blackbeard, this could be a thing as well. Like, versus Blackbeard right now, like, even on release, he was good on release. But they've been giving us the recent powerhouse support, which has made him even better. So, this is another unit that if they continuously drop powerhouse stuff on us, versus Blackbeard stocks are going to keep rising because HP Guard is such a broken mechanic, considering how many times we're inflicted with burn, how many times we're inflicted with the pain debuff. This character just bypasses that, and it's so good. He's so good. If lore stocks go up as well with striker support, man, it's over. Like, this legit might be one of the best legends in the game. Let's move on. Shanks, I mean, to be honest, this is kind of similar to Rayleigh Gaban. Like, it's like a base legend that is just a very, very decent unit to have. Great because Rainbow Captain, usable in a lot of content, good synergy with other units. Not really too much to say there. These units are all powerful. Versus Shanks, again, this is kind of similar to Blackbeard. Like, well, it's similar to Blackbeard in a way, where only one side of the Versus unit actually sees predominant usage. I still am a big fan of Versus Kid. I admit Versus Kid has not seen a lot of play, but it's the fact that shooters are not that good. So he goes hand in hand with that. But when you think at Shanks, like, if you just look at Shanks at face value in terms of what he does, like, Shanks really doesn't really provide a lot. So if we just pull him up real quick, I just want to make this point. So, like, his captain ability, why is this so... Oh, yeah, that's right, because it's Kid as well. This captain ability really doesn't do that much. It's not a great captain. Multipliers are obviously good because you can get up to like 6.5. Obviously, fantastic. The crit rate stuff is sleeper. I don't care about the crit stuff. I think it's kind of a meme. It just enables stuff. The crit damage stuff is kind of whatever. Obviously, Despair Reduction is amazing. And then, you know, if the resistance stuff is also a meme. It's whatever, right? The Versus effect is phenomenal. It's amazing. The Weaken buff, which you can stack with increased damage taken that goes through full immunity, which is great. And then the special ability, obviously, being able to apply Territory, which gives your slasher characters additional damage, and the effect of double stacking conditional buffs, and then also providing a really good conditional boost. So this character is basically built for Super Boss Kizunas, and as long as characters like Zoro and Sanji are usable, being able to transform everyone into a slasher so that his special abilities Territory will work for everyone, and then of course you get all of the benefits of that. So him, and then even like versus Luffy versus Kaido, the fact that he's free spirit, make him into a slasher, and then his versus effect gives increased damage taken through immunity. He gives weakened status through immunity with his versus effect. These two characters together with Zoro Sanji, I mean, that is already at a fantastic core. You can add like Shiryu or Cross Skill for set target status. Like, oh my god, like that team is just broken. I can't stress that enough. It's so busted. But the thing is like, while Shanks is like one of the best units for Super Boss, like, outside of that, he's, like, kind of doesn't really do much. I kind of like this better. Like, Luffy versus Kaido is so good because versus Kaido is... I mean, versus Kaido is just the driven version of Uta. Is, in a way, right? It doesn't have turn progress activated effect, but in terms of the captain ability, if you read the captain effects, kind of similar. They both do the same utility of special reverse and paralysis reduction. Kaido has a lot more going on for him. Do I really want to bump Uta down that low? I think I kind of have to, man. Like, these units are just so powerful. The top 5 is going to get a bit of a shake-up. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video. Roger and these supporter units are still really good. Shout out to Ace and Yamato, a very respectable unit. And, of course, Nami Karina's phenomenal. So, I think that's okay for now. As I said, we'll touch on the top 5 a little bit later on in the video. Let's get things started. Let's do it. So, the first character is going to be Kaido and King. When I first read these two units of Katakuri Big Mom and Kaido and King, I definitely thought Kaido and King was going to be the better of the two, but after actually using them, I kind of like Katakuri Big Mom better. Now look, you can say what you want about the fact that, you know, I'm a big Katakuri fan. I just really didn't like these units that much. A little wonky. Having to build Driven Powerhouse with them is fine. The captain ability is also respectable. The fact that you have the Kaido side of things where he's able to inflict the debuff to the enemy, but then Alba is the one that removes all the debuffs on himself, so you can get yourself in really weird situations where, you know, you kind of want to be in Kaido form, but then at the same time, if you want to get around debuffs, you need to be in Alba's form. it can be a little bit annoying, especially because in order to switch into the captain position, you need to start as Alba, switch into Kaido, and then when he's in Kaido form, he doesn't resist these debuffs. So then you'd have to like preemptively switch earlier and then switch again, so then you can remove all the stuff. It's weird. The combined captain ability is really good, but the big thing that I really like about this unit is the super special. This super special is one of the best super specials in the game, removing special bind by 7 and giving cooldown -2 to Driven and Powerhouse. Like that, that's all it really does, really, but it's so good. Because this character as a crewmate is also able to resist special bind and special reverse on themselves, which means you can activate their special ability, which gets you access to this super type. So yeah, it makes sense, I get it. But in terms of what you look at with the special, in terms of the damage that it does, right? So it does fixed damage, it does end of turn damage for 2 turns, reduces tap limit by 3 turns, that's kind of like whatever, it's pretty redundant. 7 turns of bind removal is fine, combined into the dual form for 3 turns, and then if you have a Driven or Powerhouse captain, you get the 1.3 to 1.75 chain multiplicative buff only for 2 turns, which this should be 3 turns in my opinion. Based on the amount of HP, if you're below 30% when you launch the special, it allows your chain buff to be buffed 2 times, and then increases the effect of the chain buff by 0.3, and then also you buff your base attack, which goes in hand with the Katakuri Big Mom, which has an effect in their kit to give you base attack buff, so you can buff that, you can buff your own chain stuff. But for a Kaido and King character, I really expected more damage boosting effects in this kit. It doesn't really do a lot in terms of enhancing your damage. Yes, you can definitely manipulate chain multiplicative buffs with other effects to make them go crazy, but it doesn't really provide a lot. I was expecting more. Now, the switch effect, when you activate the captain shift, does provide you with the ability to get a 2 times conditional boost against burn and paralyzed enemies, which goes in hand with their captain ability, which can inflict that to the enemy. But I was just expecting more. So while this character is focused on buffing Driven and Powerhouse, which is quite good because Driven and Powerhouse will inevitably get more and more units, but at the same time, Kaido and Alba will inevitably get more and more units, specifically Kaido will. The way that I see it right now, I personally can't put them in the always used tier. I think for now, I would put them in moderately used, and I think that's probably where they're going to stay. I just don't see them in my head. I don't see them going higher than this. I just can't see it. I just feel like the characters in this upper echelon are going to be used way more than Kaido and Alba. I could be wrong, but this is just my forward thinking and how I think about this unit. I was just expecting a lot more from this character. Now we can pivot and talk about Katakuri and Big Mom. Now, why I think this character is going to see a bit more play in the future, the captain ability to resist blowaway, I think that's honestly really underrated. There aren't too many characters that can do this, and while blowaway isn't the most common debuff that you're going to be going up against, I would argue, blowaway is more common than tap limit debuffs, just comparing the two. This character has healing and damage reduction stuff as well, which is kind of neat. The healing effects in the captain is kind of whatever. If you are in the Katakuri form or in the dual form, anytime you take damage, you inflict 70% damage reduction, or defense reduction should I say, on the enemy side of the field, which you could go hand in hand with the defense down conditional boost, but again, it's depending on the enemy to hit you, so that effect is kind of whatever. The other thing about this unit is that tandem slots become similar slots. I think that's also pretty cool, because if you got a character that can just generate you a full board of tandem slots, this character making them similar, which is equating to a rainbow slot, they can't be manipulated by the opponent, you can lock them, keep them for multiple turns, and really abuse that kind of mechanic with them, I think is the big thing. A lot of HP as well, don't forget about that. But yeah, 20% damage reduction, lots of healing at the end of the turn, heal every time you kill something, lots and lots of healing, and then anytime one of these other units provide a special, you get a buff to chain locks and color affinity. It's kind of like whatever. The captain shift effect is whatever as well, just giving some cooldown reduction, counter recovery gets removed, which is interesting, kind of unique there, and then boosting base buffs, base attack by 1250, so that is where that can synergize well with the Kaido and King. I will say as well, Kaido and King's effect to provide the buff to the base attack boost, which is right here. This also goes really well with versus Blackbeard, because versus Blackbeard gives you an attack buff and gives you base attack boost. So this to buff that is pretty incredible. So just something to think about. The other thing, the reason why I think this character is better is because the character just gives you a full board assembler slots and gives you an orb boost as well. That is pretty incredible. This character also removes Slotbind and Despair. So Despair, a common debuff for sure. Slotbind, not so much. There aren't many characters that remove Slotbind with a special. This character is one of them, which is cool. And this effect, Similar slots can be used to perform super tandem. So that's one of the big issues with these types of slots, that they block you out from using super tandem. So this circumvents that issue by making similar slots basically into tandem slots for that turn. So that's just a really neat effect this character gets access to. The new Oden also does something similar. And then the super effect of this character, being able to provide damage reduction and then enhancing the multiplier of these slots, which again circumvents the issue with why would I want to use similar slots when Wano slots give me more damage. This also allows you to get more damage. But I think it's just the fact that this character can generate slots for you, and I feel like a character that can do this is more valuable in more situations compared to Kaido and King, which with their special provide chain multiplicative buffs. That's kind of like all they do. So that's just my thoughts, and through using this character in content, I found this character generating similar slots was more valuable than Kaido and King's potential utility with their super type. I feel like that's like the key difference with the units. Like, when I use Kaido and King, the main reason I would want to use them is for the 7 turns of special bind -2 cooldown super type. With this character, it's to generate, you know, the similar slots, and being able to resist blowaway as a captain is always an interesting positive as well. But I think overall, all that arguing about which one's better, as I completely lose them, this character's still not like top tier. Like, I feel like these characters are pretty close in terms of how good they are. I don't think they're going to be breaking into the top tiers anytime soon. I guess the other thing I forgot to mention about these two units as well is that for their potential abilities, this character having super tandem, and the super tandem isn't that good. This character has final tap. Now, I must admit, I haven't tested the final tap at level 5, but this has potential to be good at level 5 because it's the same type of final tap as this Yamato. The only real difference is that Yamato has inbuilt effects in her kit that buff damage for the next final tap character, and that on top of the final tap effect, which is the same, similar to this, is why Yamato does more damage. But is that going to make this character that good when this character doesn't have all the final tap bonus damage that this character has? I'm not sure. I haven't tested it out, but in theory, this character's final tap can be good, but we'll just have to wait and see overall. Okay, next on the list is going to be Sir Crocodile. This is a pretty cool 6+. Obviously, it's a TM legend. It's the first TM legend, first game mode specific legend to get a 6+. Obviously has a level limit break and a super evo effect. And the thing is the character doesn't receive that many amazing buffs from going from base form into level limit break, so you don't really have to go out of your way to use level limit break wanted posters to buff this unit up. You know, the main difference is that it gets 7 turns instead of 6 turns in terms of the paralysis removal. The chain boundary does get buffed from 3.0 to 3.25, so that's obviously, you know, a little bit of a difference there. But there's really not that much difference. So I must admit that you don't really have to go out of your way to use posters. This super special is fantastic. So they have buffed it where they have added more units to the list. So you can use Buggy, Ivankov, and Jinbei as characters to proc the super special. But they have also added this. This character now provides an HP guard within his super special, albeit it's not a 100% HP guard like Kid or versus Blackbeard, but it's still an HP guard, which does reduce damage that you take from, you know, pain, burn effects, whatever. And the thing is, you can basically activate this whenever you want. I mean, yes, there is an HP threshold, but there's multiple conditions. You can either fulfill the HP threshold or have one of the units on your crew. So as long as you fulfill the unit requirement, you can activate this whenever you want, so that if on that burst turn you're inflicted with a pain debuff, or let's say that's like back-to-back, you know, burst turns you have to do, you can activate one super special one stage, another super special on another stage, and basically reduce the pain and burn debuff that you would be taking by 70%, which is quite a lot, especially when you counter the fact that this character is healing for 4,000 HP at the end of every turn, and especially if you're running double croc, that's 8,000. If you're using a healing, ship, and sockets, it's 10,000 heal per turn just from the captain abilities and passive effects, which is kind of nuts, on top of 20% damage reduction, so very tanky captain, 10% health cut at the start of every stage. So this unit's really, really interesting. I like what this character does, but the main issue that I have with Crocodile is that this unit is basically like a 2021 kind of unit. Like, there's no utility in the captain, really, which is kind of the big drawback and why he won't be used in a lot of content, which is kind of an issue. But in terms of raw damage, he's pretty solid, and he has good synergies. He's a driven cerebral focus unit. That's a big buff, of course, going from mono cerebral to now buffing cerebral and driven. Yes, that is definitely a big issue. So I think overall, I kind of want to put him at the top of this tier. I really have troubles pushing him up because he just doesn't have that much utility. I mean, they've added paralysis removal in his special, but that's kind of all they've done. So I don't think it's good enough for him to be pushing into the higher tiers. It's my opinion, but I think that it's a fair 6+. There's definitely been better 6+s this year, but it's pretty decent. Okay, so we've got 2 more characters to talk about. We have Oden, Kinemon, and Denjiro. So, yeah, and we've got this latest batch, and I really, really do not like this batch. One silver lining, I suppose, with the Oden, Kinemon, and Denjiro is the captain ability is actually pretty good. The captain ability is pretty strong overall. Being able to resist 10 turns of special reverse, you know, the healing at the end of a turn is also pretty powerful. Multipliers are very respectable. Like, this character's got a good captain, so I can't really complain there. Crewmate abilities are pretty solid overall as long as you can apply the territory buff. The switch effect, being able to reduce a special bind on themselves, fine. Base attack buffs, fine. Healing, okay. Captain shift is -3 turns of cooldown. Dex orbs into matching, or matching orbs into Dex, which goes in hand in hand with their special. And then chain multiplicative buff, which can override, okay. And then the special ability, paralysis removal. Dex into Wano slots for 3 turns, which goes hand in hand with that captain shift. Block and matching slots into Dex, which can be transformed into Wano, and then very similar to Katakuri Big Mom, Wano slots can be used to perform super tandem effects for the next 3 turns, so that's pretty cool. And then attack and all buffs can be applied, can be buffed that have been applied by Slash and Free Spirit characters. It can be enhanced 2 times for 3 turns, so you use this special first, and then any other Slash and Free Spirit character can have their attack and all buffs buffed twice, which is cool. And then if you have a chain lock, inflicts increased damage taken. Otherwise, you get a chain boundary for 3 turns. But the problem is, this increased damage taken doesn't go through full immunity, so that's kind of a shame. And then the super special removes burn, increases the orb and attack buffs by 0.3, and dex or strength into the super typing of that character. There's just, this character, I feel like, is just missing something. Like, the captain ability, I do not have any issues with. I think it's a perfectly usable captain effect. I feel like the special is lacking something seriously. Like, paralysis removal, cool. The slot change is not guaranteed, but you got a pretty good shot at getting, you know, the slots manipulated the way that you want. Being able to perform the Super Tan with Wano, that's obviously really cool. But this whole effect of buffing attack and all buffs, like, that's kind of just whatever. Of course, you're supposed to use this effect first, so I guess, and then you use other attack and all boost. Okay, like, it's I just feel like there's something missing. There definitely should be something else in this kit. The chain boundary is really strong, don't get me wrong. This not going through full immunity is a very, very weird effect. I definitely would have preferred something else, like, because inflicting the enemy with increased damage taken, I think, is a pretty important effect to give you a lot of increased damage, as the name would suggest for the buff. It definitely feels like they're lacking something in this kit. I just don't know what, I can't really put my finger on it. But there's something that not right with this design. There is something a little off. And I will say, just the biggest thing as well is the name of the unit, being Oden, Kinemon, and Denjiro. This unit should have just been Oden. Straight up. Kinemon and Denjiro should not have been in this kit. Obviously, it doesn't mean, it means that you can't use the captain shift if it's a solo unit, obviously. And that's another thing as well, is that we just had an Oden rare recruit in the first celebration with Roger Rayleigh Gaban. One of the rare recruits was Whitebeard and Oden. So yeah, that's another reason I'm just so shocked that they actually selected this as the character. But again, I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole again. I just think that this character, it's not good enough in my eyes. Now look, I haven't used the character. I know it's going to be strong, and the captain ability is phenomenal. At the moment, I do want to put them in this tier, but I don't think they're on the same level as these two. Maybe, I think it might be better than Kaido and Alba. I haven't used Oden, Kinemon, Denjiro yet, but it's lacking. It just feels like it's lacking. Speaking of lacking, the design of this unit makes absolutely no sense to me. So I talked about it briefly in my video, talking about just the campaign, how when we first read, we could only see the dual captain. Now, in the dual captain, you know, you get 10% health cut at the end of every turn, and then attacks go through defensive effects, right? Which is a really strong effect. We all love that. What we didn't see was the solo captain abilities, where the health cut still maintains, and you only bypass defensive effects if you're above 85% health. So this unit is cutting your health by 10% at every turn, with 85% being the threshold to go above that threshold to be able to bypass defensive effects with your normal attacks, obviously we see a major issue there. Now, the character does have a 5% heal in their switch effect, okay, and in the super switch, it's a 15% heal. The special doesn't heal, so we can already see there's a big issue here. There's going to be a lot of situations where you want to use this guy as a character, as a captain, but you're not able to because the enemy does like a health cut or whatever, and then you need a heal to get above that threshold in order to go through the defensive effects. So very, very weird, and especially because, you know, you want to beat these high HP thresholds, and this character has Rush. We all know that Rush will, you know, allow you to lose HP. Now, I'm pretty sure that the HP requirement, it has to be at the start of the turn, so when you perform your attacks and the Rush loses your HP, you're still going to be able to go through defensive effects because I believe it does the check at the start of the turn. So while that's not really an issue, and usually on burst turns you're going to be in your dual captain anyway, but it's just weird, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very weird design. The special ability, again, feels like it's lacking. I mean, if we just have a look at the combined special, 2 turns of cooldown for everyone, attack down by 7, 1.7 chain multiple, I believe this is chain addition, and then boosts enemy damage reduction to attack of, wait, okay, this is not the exact wording of the special, but you basically get an attack boost proportional to the enemy's damage reduction is what it is. So if the enemy has a, I think it's a, yeah, if it's a 50% damage reduction, it's a 2.2 times attack boost or something. Either way, it's a very weird attack boost. I don't know what made them think of an attack boost like this, and I'm pretty sure this is just counting as a normal attack boost. This is not like a new buff that can be stacked, and if it is, that changes everything. But I'm pretty sure it's just an attack boost with the condition that multiplier changing based on the rainbow shield of the enemy. I don't know what they were thinking. This character is just not good, honestly. It's just not. Like, if you're going to use a Sulong to bypass defensive effects, the V1 carrot is still good, and Dog and Cat are obviously still good too. This character just seems wonky to me. Not a fan of this unit at all, and for those reasons, I do think this character deserves to be on the list. This character is not that great, let's be real. I'm going to put it on the rarely used tier because I feel like the other Sulongs are just kind of better. Like, these 3 are just better versions of the unit. I don't know. Could be just me. The character does have cooldown reduction, which these units also have. Does have attack down removal in the special. That's pretty cool. It is what it is though, you know? So that's the new characters added to the list. But now we need to make the really hard decision at the top 5. So if we're having a look at the top 5 here, I do want to put Versus Blackbeard on the list. And I think, do I want to put him above Psygear 5? Man, it's a tough one. I haven't really used Psygear 5 all that much. The only real time I'm definitely using Psygear 5 is in Co-op Quest. Like, obviously, Co-op Quest, Psygear 5 is still phenomenal. But outside of that, I feel like Versus Blackbeard is just better. I feel like Versus Blackbeard is just more useful in more content these days. But then again, I mean, if you just think about all the other content in the game, like, yes, modern content, Blackbeard sees a lot of play. But if you think about all the content in the game, Psygear 5 is still better. Really, he is. I'm going to put him above Versus Shanks. I think I want to bump the Int Luffy down. And I kind of want to bump this guy up. I really like Luffy versus Kaido. Surprisingly, I actually kind of like versus Kaido better than Luffy. I think I've been using versus Kaido a lot more. But obviously, Luffy has territory, and that's an inherent advantage that he has. He's got great utility too. But I think I'm pretty comfortable with that. I mean, Zoro Sanji is clear number 1. I don't think anyone's arguing with that. From that point onwards, I could see arguments for a lot of characters, right? I really like 10th Anniversary Ace. I think he's still going to see lots of play. The cooldown, attack, orb boost, utility, paralysis removal, damage nullification removal. His super, EX super is really good. So it's hard to argue with Ace not being in top 5. Psygear 5, I can see arguments for him not being in there. For modern standards, like, Psygear 5 probably doesn't see as much play these days, but he's still a really good unit and you have to respect it. Versus Blackbeard is more of like a personal thing. I really love this unit and I think he deserves to be in top 5. And then, like, the 5th spot's tough because, like, Luffy's good, this Luffy Kaido's good, Shanks still amazing. This Shanks I don't think deserves to be in top 5. Uta is still one of my favorites. Yeah, this is a tough one, to be honest. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it, and we'll see what happens. Of course, next tier list is going to be the New Year's characters, so we're hoping the New Year's characters are able to shift this up. We hope. We'll see. I'm not too sure about it, but we'll see what happens, right? Hopefully you enjoyed the video though. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about this down below in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.